It is my pleasure to be moderating this forum today, and I want to just set some ground rules both for the candidates and also for the crowd. A 5-minute introduction. So 5 minutes from each of the candidates, then a couple of questions from me, and then the most important thing, we're going to open up to the floor of voters and other people interested in the room. But I will introduce to you for a 5-minute statement, Dan Meads, the NDP candidate for Calgary Centre.
Well, it's really great to be here this evening. I'd like to thank CEP for putting this on, and of course, all of you for taking the time out of your evening to come here. One would think that you could expect that of all the candidates, but I guess not. You know, I'm proud to be here tonight representing the New Democratic Party as their candidate. I'm proud especially on this issue, or on environmental issues, because the NDP has been the strongest, longest-standing voice for environmental issues in the House of Commons. It is an amazing thing. You know, when we look at the NDP's platform, a national transit strategy, a national energy strategy, restoring the eco-energy home retrofits, a climate change accountability act, as well as a true cap and trade system which would make polluters pay. These are the types of things that the NDP has been fighting for in the House of Commons for many, many years. And they're the things that I would like to be able to fight for on behalf of the people of Calgary Centre. You know, as we move forward, thinking about energy and our future together, as we move forward in addressing climate change, we also need to be aware of some of the other things that are happening in our community that are interrelated. And so thinking about climate change without thinking about social sustainability, without making sure that we realize we can't affect true, meaningful, lasting change on environmental issues without addressing social justice. You know, we have 3.2 million people living in poverty in Canada today. 150,000 of them here in Calgary. I've worked around the world doing poverty reduction work in West Africa. And while I was there, it's easy for us on this side of the world to think that, gosh, other countries aren't making choices that are green enough, that are environmentally sustainable. We can't ask people to make good choices when they don't have choices at all. And that's what poverty reduction is about and why it connects with the environmental issues of our time. You know, when we think of important ideas in the environmental realm, we think that the only way to get deep and durable change on climate change is through legislation. I think we can all agree with that here. And the best chance, I would say the only chance we have in Canada today of getting meaningful environmental policy turned into legislation is with a strong opposition, a strong NDP opposition that can hold Stephen Harper to account and become the government in 2015. I'm asking you to let me be part of that movement from right here in Stephen Harper's backyard, to bring the issues that matter to Calgarians, including but not limited to environmental issues, to Ottawa, to move this file forward for the entire country. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much to Connecting Environmental Professionals for hosting it. I think this is a terrific opportunity for us to talk about what I consider to be one of the absolute paramount issues for Calgary Centre and for the entire country, which is, of course, environmental stewardship and how it connects to our energy industry and our resource industries generally. Before I get to that, though, I would like to introduce myself a little bit because I think my background maybe provides a sort of unique connection to these issues. I'm a writer and journalist by trade. I spent most of the last 10 years focused almost exclusively as a journalist in looking for solutions to the defining issues of our time on climate and energy, and then presenting those solutions, hopefully in an accessible manner that everyone can agree is a great way to be moving forward and a vision of the future we can work on together. And I began that journey in part because as a young journalist, I was very, very passionate about environmental issues, particularly climate change, which I believed then and still believe now is the defining environmental issue, really probably the defining public policy issue of our time. How we respond to the climate challenge is going to determine whether we succeed or fail in this century, and it cannot be overestimated how important it is that we get this right. Around the time I was beginning work on my second book, though, a book called The Geography of Hope, I realized that I just couldn't bring myself, I just had my first child had just been born, I couldn't bring myself to look at what was failing, what was being lost any longer. I knew we had to move towards solutions. We had to figure out what comes next. And so I began, really kind of a series of investigations that led to 2 books and a speaking career, and basically led me to where I'm sitting right now. which is that I decided the solutions are so close at hand. There is so much opportunity waiting for us if we begin to address these as opportunities and not as costs to be shared. That I decided, you know what, give me a megaphone and I'll talk into it. Give me a soapbox, I'll stand on it. I will do what I can to talk to these issues and to bring these issues to as widely as I can and to really spread the word that there's enormous opportunity to be had by dealing with this stuff seriously. Now, given that this is my topic as a journalist, I frequently run into what I think of as the Calgary question, which is, how does a guy who writes best-selling books on sustainability wind up in Calgary? And there's this kind of supposition involved in that you couldn't possibly be as concerned if you lived in Calgary about these issues, or that maybe the knives would be out around me from the industry. And of course, we all know nothing could be further from the truth. And that's why I think this election, this by-election here in Calgary Centre, represents such an enormous opportunity for us to send a message and really to talk about what Calgary is now and what it needs now. We know that the energy industry here in Calgary is our bread and butter industry, and we know that it is going to be providing a vital resource to the entire country and to the world for many years to come. But we also know that we can only do that if we are being absolutely the most responsible stewards of the environment that we possibly can, and that we are using that precious one-time gift to begin thinking about where we go next and what that sort of diversified, sustainable energy future looks like. And really, if we as Calgarians would like to make it absolutely clear that we are ready for that challenge and that we can actually meet that challenge better than anyone, because who understands energy, the ins and outs of energy, its needs, its costs, and its benefits better than Calgarians? If we want to send a message as Calgarians about where we want to go, what more powerful message could we possibly send than to send the second Green MP in Canadian history to Parliament? Think how powerful, how unexpected that would be, how much attention that would bring to the city, and the way the city has, a progressive heart always has, and that heart is beating strong. More than that, at a time when Parliament, right this moment, is really full of nothing but a very, very immature shouting match about climate and energy issues, what if there was someone who could speak to both sides? This has been my career to date, has been writing popular books, speaking to everyone from Green Calgary to the Canadian Association of Petroleum Professionals. I can speak to both sides. I think we need someone who can begin a new conversation that gets everyone involved and puts everything on the table. And I really think the best way to send that message right now is to elect a Green MP in Calgary Centre. So thank you all for your time, and I do hope we can earn your vote.
I want to share with you some ideas about context and how we should be approaching the question of the environment. In my view, the environment is the context for all life. Everything that happens on planet Earth happens within the environment. And inside the environment is society and culture. That's where humans live. And then inside of that is the economy. The way we're being governed now in Ottawa is by treating the economy as the center of the universe and everything else as a competing interest. This is fundamentally wrong. It's a fundamental misapprehension of the reality of how the world works. All our food, all our water, all our air, everything that keeps us going comes from the environment. So we need to move in the 21st century into a place where we're considering our relationship with the home we live on and working with it. We didn't used to understand this, but we do now. When my family came here in the 1870s, before the railway, before the Mounties, there were bison herds right here where we sit. There were grizzly bears right here where we sit. And they set out to create a society. Part of it was protected in national parks. Some of the most intact landscapes in the world are in Alberta. It's a wonderful accomplishment, but we also decided to transform the landscape that we're in here for economic reasons. Now we find ourselves at the beginning of the 21st century with a big challenge. We are one of the great oil and gas producing regions of planet Earth. We are that not only because it's under the ground, but because we've built a culture and a society that allows us to develop that resource. The economy is derivative of that culture and society. And if you want the proof of that, look at Libya or Iraq. They have lots of oil and gas under their feet. They do not enjoy our level of prosperity because they haven't invested in technology and education, in systems of development. They haven't been able to mobilize the capital necessary to create a wealthy society. We have. But now our challenge is to say, okay, we've built this great energy city, a superpower city in energy, but we now need to build a great city. And building a great city means that we need to focus on society and culture, as well as our relationship with the natural environment. We need to get the big ideas right. And climate change is one of those big ideas that we need to wrestle with. No society in the world that had the oil sands would not develop it if it could mobilize the capital and technology to do it. I've worked all over the world on the environment. I've been to all the countries that people think of, like Costa Rica. Everybody would do it if they could. But that doesn't mean we should do it in a manner that's destructive. And we need to come to grips with our prosperity and what we're trying to achieve. We need public policy here that takes an integrated look at how we develop our natural resources, how we protect whole watersheds, how we protect ecosystems, how we protect wildlife and wilderness. This is our challenge as Canadians in the 21st century. If we get this right, we will be leading the world in a positive direction. We can get it right at the scale of the Mackenzie Basin, for example, in northern Canada, where we could develop that massive resource called the oil sands and still profit from the enormous benefits that come from keeping nature intact there. This is how we need to begin to think. In our city, we need to think of ourselves as the gateway to one of the most magnificent natural regions on planet Earth, and we need to build a great city that's full of interesting culture and diversity so that we can have a resilient economy. Because when I lived here for many, many, many years, we had a swing. I graduated from law school in Calgary in 1984 at the tail end of the economic downturn associated with the collapse in oil prices and the natural energy program. Then I was a partner in a downtown law firm in the mid-90s when the price of oil was $10 a barrel. I was on a lease and I had 150 employees. That was scary. We got out of that. And now we're still cycling through that. We need to take this wealth and build a sustainable society that's excellent in terms of its environmental performance, that's excellent in terms of its arts and culture, and that's excellent in terms of civic pride. We should be striving to be the great metropolis of the Great Plains with the most intact and integral relationship with the natural world of any city in the world. That's a vision worthy of a great city. That's who we should be. That's what I want to carry to Ottawa, a public policy framework that can get us to a great place. Thank you.